Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Dark Matters Digest. I'm your host, Samuel Hollingsworth, and today we have a truly unique and fascinating guest joining us. We're thrilled to have Susan Ramirez, a seasoned investigator who has worked on high-profile cases such as the Black Dahlia and the Circleville letter writer. With her extensive experience and deep insights into these cases, Susan will share her perspectives on the investigations, the challenges faced by law enforcement, and the potential for new leads or breakthroughs. So, without further ado, let's dive into this captivating conversation with Susan Ramirez. Welcome to Dark Matters Digest, Susan. It's an honor to have you on the show. For our listeners who may not be familiar with your background, could you please tell us a little about your career with the LAPD?
Thank you, Samuel. I'm happy to be here. I served with the LAPD for nearly 30 years before retiring. During my time on the force, I worked on a variety of cases, but the Black Dahlia and Circleville letter writer cases were two that really stuck with me.
It's fascinating to have someone with first-hand experience on these notorious cases. Let's start with the Black Dahlia. Can you tell us about your involvement in the investigation?
Certainly. I joined the LAPD a few decades after Elizabeth Short's murder, but the case was still very much an active investigation. I was assigned to the cold case unit, and the Black Dahlia was one of the cases I worked on. I spent countless hours reviewing case files, interviewing witnesses, and pursuing leads.
What was it about the Black Dahlia case that made it so difficult to solve?
There were several factors that contributed to the case remaining unsolved. First and foremost, the crime scene itself was quite unusual. Elizabeth's body had been severely mutilated and staged in a manner that suggested the killer had some level of medical knowledge. This made it difficult for investigators to identify a clear motive or suspect.
You also worked on the Circleville letter writer case. Can you tell us about that?
The Circleville letter writer case was another one that I worked on during my time with the LAPD. It involved a series of anonymous letters sent to residents in Circleville, Ohio. The letters contained threats and personal information, causing fear and paranoia within the community.
How did the LAPD become involved in a case that took place in Ohio?
While the case primarily fell under the jurisdiction of local authorities, the LAPD was asked to provide assistance due to our expertise in dealing with similar cases. We collaborated with Ohio law enforcement in an effort to identify the letter writer and bring them to justice.
What were some of the challenges you faced while investigating the Circleville letter writer case?
The anonymity of the letters made it difficult to determine who was behind them. Additionally, the letters were postmarked from various locations, making it hard to pinpoint a specific area where the letter writer might be based. The lack of physical evidence also complicated the investigation.
In both cases, there were numerous suspects and theories. How did you manage to navigate the multitude of leads and tips that came in?
It was definitely challenging at times. In cases like these, you have to remain focused and follow the evidence, no matter where it leads. It's essential to be thorough and not dismiss any potential leads, but it's also important not to get bogged down in theories that don't have any solid evidence to support them.
Do you believe that either of these cases will ever be solved?
It's difficult to say for certain. In both cases, so much time has passed that it becomes increasingly challenging to uncover new evidence or leads. However, I remain hopeful that advances in technology and the persistence of dedicated investigators will eventually lead to breakthroughs and potentially solve these mysteries.
Susan, do you think the increased involvement of online communities and amateur sleuths in these cases has helped or hindered the investigations?
It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, online communities can help bring new attention to cold cases and potentially uncover new leads. However, they can also generate a lot of noise and unverified information, which can make it difficult for investigators to separate fact from fiction.
What advice would you give to those interested in investigating these cases or similar unsolved mysteries?
My advice would be to approach these cases with caution and respect. Remember that there are real people and families involved who have been deeply affected by these events. It's important to base your research on verified information and to avoid spreading rumors or unfounded theories.
Thank you for that advice, Susan. Now, looking back on your career, what would you say was the most memorable or rewarding aspect of working on these high-profile cases?
The most rewarding aspect for me was the opportunity to help bring closure to the families and communities affected by these cases. Although we weren't always able to solve them, I take pride in knowing that we did everything in our power to uncover the truth.
Do you think there's still hope for new leads or breakthroughs in these cases, especially with the advancements in technology and forensic science?
Absolutely. As technology continues to advance, I believe there's always the possibility of new leads or breakthroughs. In fact, we've seen several cold cases solved in recent years, thanks to advancements in DNA testing and other forensic techniques.
What role do you think the media has played in shaping public perception of these cases, and has it helped or hindered the investigations?
The media can be both helpful and harmful in these situations. On one hand, media attention can help keep these cases in the public eye and generate new leads or tips. On the other hand, sensationalized reporting or the spread of misinformation can create confusion and make it more difficult for investigators to do their job.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share about your experiences working on these cases?
I'd like to emphasize the importance of perseverance in these types of investigations. While it can be incredibly frustrating to work on a case that remains unsolved, it's essential to keep pushing forward and exploring every possible lead. You never know when a seemingly insignificant detail might turn out to be the key to solving the case.
Thank you so much for your time and insights, Susan. It's been fascinating to hear your perspective on these notorious cases.
Thank you, Samuel. It's been a pleasure to share my experiences, and I hope it helps to shed some light on these mysteries for your listeners.